The U.S. defense industry is large, complex, and competitive. It is also lucrative for those companies able to navigate it successfully. The American Society of Military Comptrollers helps bridge the gap between the boardroom and the battlefield while supporting transformation in the defense sector. The Business of Defense podcast brings you inside the companies working to achieve this, directly from the business leaders, and to understand how they create value for their companies and their customers. For more information on ASMC, visit asmconline.org.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Welcome to the podcast. You are listening to Jester Section Hiker, the premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers, and I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. Several weeks ago, I got a message from Paul Collins, or Skunkape, about meeting up with him at the Palmetto State Hangers Spring Swing. Skunkape knows I have been contemplating switching to a hammock setup when I backpack instead of a tent. The problem is I have no clue about hammocks. And until now, I had no clue what a spring swing was or that there was an entire community of awesome people who loved a hammock. So I recently drove to Little Petey State Park in Dillon, South Carolina, met up with Skunkape and his crew of hammockers, and you will hear I learned so much about hammocks, hammock hangs, and the fact that those of us that tent are known as ground dwellers. I guess this episode begins to put the spotlight on my journey to becoming a hammocker and venture into the hammock hanging community. Thanks for joining me for this episode, and now on to learning more about hammocks from AJ Glenn and Paul Skunkape Collins. All right, you guys, welcome back to the podcast. And let me go ahead and set the stage here for you. I hope I don't get this wrong. I am at the Palmetto State Hangers Spring Swing. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, good. And I am actually here because you guys have heard his name on the podcast before, and you guys know he is helping me with the artwork on the podcast. So I am here in person, finally, with Skunkape. So Skunk, thank you for inviting me for the afternoon to the spring... Or the swing, okay.
Spring swing.
Yes. Springs, yes. Okay, spring swing. So welcome to the podcast officially.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's great to finally meet you.
Yes.
I feel like I've known you forever.
I know. We got out and we hugged, because we're outside and I've been vaccinated, and that's what we're going to start doing. But I'm also here with AJ, who is, I'm going to call... So Skunkape and AJ are my experts now that I'm utilizing because I'm interested in hammocking and I want to find out more about it. So welcome to the podcast, AJ.
It's great to meet you. I've heard so much about you and I'm really looking forward to our chat.
So these guys, I have, setting the stage here. I am looking at how many hammocks that you guys have set up here.
We've got 6 ourselves.
6 yourselves, and then around this primitive camp area is what we'll call it. I mean, there's probably...
About 30 to 40 people-ish. Yeah.
So a lot of hammocks to look at, but Skunkape has taken me under his wing, and now AJ, and they have walked me through. I have actually been in 2 hammocks now, looked at tarps, looked at various things. And what I want these guys to do, I think AJ is going to walk us through a little bit. I'm going to call this hammocking for beginners. And I've already asked AJ a lot of questions, but what I want to get out there is, okay, first of all, the second I got in a hammock, I may have been sold. because I wanted to take a nap immediately when you guys put me in there. And I have felt what it's like to have an underquilt underneath me, and I understand what a quilt is now. So AJ, this is a hammock for beginners episode. So start us off with, what do people want to look for? What do they want to, begin to seek out as far as getting started to hammock?
I would say the first thing that someone needs to do that would be the greatest benefit to them starting out is to go to a hang. Their hammock camping can be overwhelming very, very quickly for the amount of options that you do have, and that's a blessing and a curse all at the same time. If you go to a hang, you're going to see upteen different renditions of how you can hammock.
And I'm noticing that because there's so many different tarps and, ways people have, even how you have your tarps, in the ground or on the tree. So
really every single part of any system is modular, which is kind of unique to the camping world. But just getting started, going to a hang, see what you like, see what works for you, and trying it out from there. That way you let someone else spend the money and to try out, and you're not having to spend your own money to realize that this doesn't work out for you.
Because what I've learned from you guys, you can, if you're a backpacker or a section hiker, you can go down rabbit holes with all types of gear, and there's rabbit holes you can go down to with hammock gear. I'm learning. You can spend hundreds of dollars on different tarps, different weights of tarps. So I'm brand new. So what is the setup? What am I looking for? And I'm going to use this backpacking. So start us off with a tarp, the hammock itself. And then I'm going to get into like maybe how to do these things and maybe some of my fears that you guys have actually eased my mind a little bit with. So what comes with a hammock? What am I looking for?
Okay, well, the first thing you're looking for in a hammock is, your hammock. A lot of hammocks that you see online that are really cheap are usually 9-foot hammocks that are great for lounging out. But if you're really above 5'6", they aren't really going to be optimal for sleeping in all night. What I would really encourage is an 11-foot hammock to be the absolute shortest that you go. And that's going to give you the greatest modularity of sleeping and accessories and things like that. Get started with that. Once you get there, I wouldn't take it out on a trail just yet. Set it up in your backyard. Go to a local park. Figure out how you like to set it up. When you do set it up, you want to make sure that your foot end is about a foot higher than your head end. That's going to get rid of the calf ridge that you get when you lay in it. Also, how you lay in a hammock might be contradictory to a lot of people. When you think of sleeping in a hammock, a lot of people lay like a banana and they say, oh, well, this is uncomfortable. This is not going to work for me. But in a hammock, if you lay at a diagonal, you get a completely flat lay like you would in your bed.
And that is true because I didn't believe that until I got into a couple hammocks here. And you really can move around in that, especially, if you're at your diagonal, you could place yourself where you're looking at a beautiful view. You could set it up. You guys taught me this where I could put my feet on the ground. I'm not having to carry an extra mat for my knees when I get out of my tent. Type of things. So sorry to interrupt, but keep going with that.
Absolutely,
with that ideal there.
And depending on where you are at in the country, you may want to consider something that goes over your hammock. If you're in Florida, we keep a bug net on really 365 days of the year because mosquitoes are always an issue. If you live in an area where mosquitoes aren't an issue, but you're looking at temperatures really below 40 degrees, you may want to consider a top cover that's going to help hold in some of that heat that you would have in the hammock. And if you live in an area where there isn't a lot of cold or bugs, you can go kind of topless per se, and you can just let it all hang out. And
I will say I did learn with the underquilt because you actually have one set up that I got in that's very light that I think Skunkape is thinking about using in his future backpacking that does not have an underquilt, which to me, I relate that to, okay, it's a sleeping bag that goes underneath you, but it's actually titled an underquilt. And then you had one with an underquilt on it, and I got in that one. And the temperature difference, even today, what is it, 60s? I don't even, mid 50s, low 60s. I could tell the difference with having the underquilt on as soon as I got in, and it felt cozy, like I wanted to snuggle in. So I just didn't know. I didn't know how those two things worked. So going back to what you said earlier about going to a hang and getting in some of this stuff, I do recommend that as well.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people, they freeze a lot of their first nights because they don't understand. In a hammock, you have air going above you and below you. So the convection of the air will still heat from you. So you need something under you. Either an underquilt is your best option. But if you already have a pad that you're using for tent camping, you can also use a pad as well. And you also need something to go over you, just like you would in a tent. For hammocks, we use top quilts, which are essentially sleeping bags that just covers the top of you, but we also don't have zippers. So there's no zippers to go with that.
And I've learned the reason you don't have a zipper is because it can tear the material in your quilt and cause holes and things like that I never even thought about.
Absolutely. That is a major factor. Also, if you're really trying to save weight, that zipper is going to be pretty heavy. And so when you get rid of the zipper, you can get rid of a good amount of weight there as well.
And a couple myths that you all have helped me with is, number one, I had a fear that I was going to have to learn how to tie all these knots. So, but as soon as you guys took me over and I saw how the hammock actually hangs to the trees, there aren't knots. I mean, that I have to learn, really. There's clips and things like that. So talk about that.
Yeah, there is 100 different ways that you can connect a hammock to a tree. Some require knots, some do not. You can kind of pick and choose. And that's where going to a hang, you can see 18 different people have set up their hammocks 18 different ways.
And that is the truth. I mean, literally, you can look around and go, wow, okay, maybe I like that system better or whatever.
And it can be as simple as hooking a carabiner to a loop and a daisy chain. It can be as simple as hooking a titanium hook to something that we call a whoopee sling. Or you can have single line systems where you tie a Beckett hitch, is a knot that we use a lot, or a J-bend. Really, there are 18 different ways so trying out different one and seeing which one works for you. And a lot of cool things about hammock suspensions, you can buy them, but making them yourself is really easy as well.
And another benefit too that you guys were talking about earlier is when you're backpacking and if it starts raining, you can get that tarp set up. You can get under that tarp and nothing's wet. You don't really have to take anything out of your pack. You can pack your tarp separately. So talk about the benefit of, carrying a hammock and being a hammock hanger in weather.
Yeah, I have a 4-season tarp. A lot of mine are 4-season, which means it covers the sides, but they also have flaps on either end that I can close like doors. And I will say, I have been through some crazy come to Jesus kind of storms, and I have stayed absolutely dry, more so than I ever did in a tent. And that's actually surprising considering there's nothing really blocking the water under me. But because of the tarp, that area has always stayed dry, and I'm always off the ground. So under the tarp, off the ground, I'm not going to get wet. And even if it's coming in from the sides, the doors really block a lot of that from getting wet.
And the doors are not a concept that I could visualize until I got here and saw how you guys had, on the end of the tree are the doors, unlike a tent, when you're laying down in your tent, they're on the sides or you got to crawl out the front.
Right.
So the doors on the tarps are actually at your feet or your head. Mm-hmm. Is that typical, or maybe I'm just not seeing a different setup?
Well, it depends on what type of tarp that you buy. There's lots of different types of tarps, 3-season. If you're really looking for weight savings, they make asymmetrical tarps that really just cover your hammock. And if you're really looking for inclement weather for those aren't exactly the best. There's what's called a hex tarp, which basically looks like a big hexagon that you can tie out that do not have doors, but they provide just as much rain protection as a winter one, except for the doors. Another really cool thing about the tarps is when we're not getting rain, we can kind of set one side of the tarp up in what we call porch mode. And you have this huge vestibule area that you have that you can just walk right in, and if it starts raining, all you have to do is tie down those two ends and you're good to go.
And another benefit that I like is I didn't really understand that you could have privacy. So as a female, I always liked a tent because it felt like my little home. I could get inside of it. I could have privacy. I'm protected from bugs or anything, creepy crawlies that want to come in. But you also have privacy with hammock camping, and the bug nets are optional, I guess. Some come with bug nets. Mm-hmm. So when you really get in there and you really stake those tarps down, it's full privacy. You can't see, the undercarriage of the hammock, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I'm learning you could have as little or as much privacy as you want.
Absolutely. That's another benefit to the doors as well, especially it provides that just additional layer of privacy.
And then the other thing, the other myth or fear that I had that you guys dispelled pretty well is I literally thought I was going to get in it and my back was going to be bent or at an angle. And the way that you set that up is your feet are always, when you put it on the tree, you want to make sure that your feet end is higher than your head end. Am I saying that right?
Yes, just slightly, yeah.
Okay, just slightly. And what prevents that bend in the middle?
The bend in the middle comes from a hammock that is usually too short. So that's another benefit for the 11-foot hammock versus a 10 or a 9. And just having that raised foot bed, when you get in, that middle section is just tight. So how the science works, it just works. Well,
I will say too, when I got in it, the hammock tightened up.
Yes.
It became more taut, or however you say that. And in my mind, it was just going to be loosey-goosey, so to speak. But it actually, on both of them, and actually the second one, I don't know the difference in the names, but the second one was even tighter when I got in. Mm-hmm. And that's not necessarily meaning you got to tighten it tighter to the tree.
Right. Yeah, you actually want sag in the hammock. You do not want that hammock to be pulled too tight. That's why we actually have a ridge line on the hammock, which guarantees, no matter how you have it set up, it guarantees a certain level of sag. A lot of people, when they first get them, a lot of the Enos that if you go to any campground, you can see these all over the place. They string up the hammock where it literally is a line right across. For one, that's going to do a couple things. It's going to put an incredible amount of pressure or tension on those straps, and you really severely risk a failure. Two, it's not going to be very comfortable at all. So you really want a ridge line to kind of give you a guaranteed level of sag. You actually want sag from your straps to your hammock as well, about 30 degrees. So if you put your finger kind of like in an L from the tip of your index finger to the tip of your thumb, it's about 30 degrees. So You want that sag. That's all going to give you a more comfortable lay. It's also going to prevent you overstressing either your hardware or your straps or your rope, depending on what you're using for your suspension.
So for somebody that's new to this, give me a few companies that you trust that I could maybe look online just to start gathering information. Not necessarily going on there and hitting the buy button, but what are brands that you trust that have quality hammocks? I have no clue. Well,
in the hammock community, we have an amazing list of cottage vendors that will work really, really well with you. If you call, you can actually talk to the person that will be sewing your gear. A really good company that, if you're just looking to kind of get in, Ridge Outdoors makes a really good, cheap system where they have an attached bug net on their hammock. Their hammocks are 11 foot, and it's a really good economical way for someone to get in. If you want to jump in and buy once, cry once, with the hammocks that you get, Dream Hammock out of Ohio, they make an amazing product. Dutchware Gear, he's kind of like the Walmart of hammock gear altogether.
And that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not. R&R Hammocks makes a really great product. Richard is the owner of that operation. He's a great guy and makes a great product. Those are as far as hammocks goes. Warbonnet out in Colorado, he makes a really good hammock as well. Now, as far as tarps goes, UGQ makes a really good tarp. Dutchware also sells them. Warbonnet sells a good tarp. R&R also makes a couple ones. Hammock Gear is a company that makes really good tarps and quilts.
Yeah, let's add quilts in there. So who do you trust for quilts, or who do you go to?
Who do I go for quilts? Hammock Gear makes an amazing one. Loco Libre is another really great operation. Let's see, CRO, Cedar Ridge Outdoors. They make really great quilts. Warbonnet also makes quilts, and Jacks Are Better. Want to say they're out. They used to be out of Virginia Beach area, but I'm not too sure exactly. I know they changed ownerships, but the new guys are doing a really amazing job with the new. Those would be the things that I would go to just off the top of my head. Now, I will say, if you're going for a cottage vendor, a cottage built system, which I think everyone should get to if you're really into this and you want to do this long term, it's not going to be something that you click buy now and you have it by next week. A lot of these vendors they're all very small time operations. So some of these quilt vendors are going to have a lead time of, anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, just because their products are so well loved. But with that wait time, it's definitely worth it because you're going to get an amazing product for the wait. So.
Well, you guys have certainly convinced me I need to get my act together when it comes to hammocking and not being what'd you say, a ground dweller? Is that what you call us?
Yep.
Individuals that tent, we are ground dwellers. And, checking this out, and the number one thing is that I keep going back to is I don't have to roll out on the ground. I can kind of step down and save my knees and my back and everything else with that. So, AJ, thank you very much. We are going to be coming back here in just a second with AJ and Skunkape because they recommended that you guys go to a hang, and we're going to be right back to talk about HangCon. So thank you guys very much. All right, you guys, I am back with Skunk and AJ, and they're having a good time making fun of me today too. But one of the things that AJ mentioned was if you're interested in hammocking and getting out of that ground dweller mindset, you may want to attend a hang. And I really didn't know what a hang was. So these guys are also involved with a hang down in Florida called HangCon. So either one of you, we'll start with AJ. So why don't you tell us kind of who you are with HangCon and maybe what it is.
Okay. Well, HangCon is the largest hammock hang in the country. We are located in Saratoga Youth Ranch, which is right outside of Brooksville, Florida. And I am kind of the head sheriff of HangCon. I'm kind of the face of the organization right now. I took it over from two wonderful people, Timber and Gumbo. They ran it for 10 years. Before it was called HangCon, it was the Florida Hang. And it eventually grew to HangCon status, and we've been HangCon for about 7 years now. Like I said before, it's the largest hang in the country. We've had as much as close to 300 people. But we usually average in the last few years about 200. This year we averaged about 200, even with a global pandemic. It's just a really great event. Now, the cool thing about HangCon is we want to open that opportunity for as many people to come as possible and eliminating as much of those barriers as other people have that may say, oh, well, I can't do this. So the event is completely free. For the entire weekend. We do encourage an amount that people donate, but if you can't, we understand. But the event is not free for us to put together. But we want to open that opportunity for everybody to come who would like to come. We also feed you breakfast and dinner for all the nights of the hang. So
I heard there was something about a Dutch oven too.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm coming for the Dutch oven.
There's plenty of Dutch oven cooking happening. So there are nightly classes of caring and taking care of Dutch ovens and the cooking. So yeah, there's a lot of Dutch ovens. There's a lot of Dutch oven cobblers being put together.
Oh man,
and things like that.
And speaking of classes, you guys also have I don't know if you call them classes, but different, maybe vendors speaking or community partners speaking.
That's one thing that we've really wanted to put together, because we had a lot of new people that are new to hammock hangs come to HangCon this year. So it's not just, the veterans that has been doing it for 10 years. We have a lot of new people that come out, and, there is a lot of information out there that we want that information to be given in a helpful way. So we offer classes. A lot of our vendors will talk about, for example, this past year, Cedar Ridge Outdoors, they did a demonstration on the different types of insulation that they use for their top quilts and under quilts, and the difference and the benefits of either. So that was a really great class that they did. I taught a ridgeline demonstration of the different types of ridgelines and how you can set it up, the hardware that you may need, and what works for different people. And I also ran a DIY cozy class about how to build a pot cozy for
nice.
Out of Reflectix to keep your meals warm. So it's not just all hammock stuff. There's usually some hiking and a backpacking aspect to it as well. We did a hikers roundtable where we had a few people that have done, seasoned hikers, have talked about their experience, and gave the opportunity for the audience to ask questions that say, hey, I've never gone on a long hike. What could I expect? As a good way to provide that information to people. And, we are the largest hammock hang in the country. However, we are very welcoming. And if you are comfortable with the tent and say, hey, I want to try this out, don't feel intimidated. Please come and enjoy our area. Enjoy what we have to have. We will try to convert you. Spoiler alert. However, we're not discriminating against tents as well.
And that's one of the things that I've learned today, even being here. This is obviously a smaller event, but I'll go ahead and tell you guys what I pulled into this area. Like, I just was coming down this dirt road, and all of a sudden I was out. I'm literally in the middle of the event, so to speak, and I'm driving my truck around, and everybody just starts coming over. Hey, how's it going? Where can we direct you? And then finally I saw a skunk coming down. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a skunk. And they're like, hey, he's up there on the hill. But with that being said, it was a very welcoming community, even though when I pulled in, people really didn't know why I was here.
Yeah.
So you guys have welcomed me, and I'm the first to say I am very naive about hammocks, but I am 100% interested. And I think that's what people will get at HangCon too. Yeah.
And, with HangCon, with lots of different setups, don't feel intimidated about going up to someone and asking them about their setup. Any hammocker that I've ever known is more than willing to talk your ear off about, their different type of gear. And the cool thing about HangCon as well, we have a lot of vendors, so you can actually talk to the person that will be making your gear, and you can ask them questions and how to set this up right from the manufacturer, which is an experience you can't really get anywhere else. If you go to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, you're not going to have a chat with him after your meal. But with HangCon, we can provide a little of that with our vendors.
So how people find out more information, like website? What's y'all's website for that?
We have a few different ways people can find information. We do have a website, hangcon.com. We also have a Facebook page that has a lot of information that goes on there. And for some of the old school, we have a thread that usually comes out in August, September on hammockforums.net, which is a website forum completely dedicated to everything hammock camping.
We also have Instagram.
And Instagram as well.
And when is HangCon? I guess we should tell people when they should start preparing.
Yeah, absolutely. HangCon is always, unless Lord willing the creek don't rise, it's always Martin Luther King weekend. We like to have that weekend to give people that extra day to stay on that Monday if they want, or they can pack out on Sunday and not feel completely rushed to get back.
Now, do you guys actually have, if I remember correctly, it's free, but people do need to register.
Yeah, people do need to register just so we have a account for food and we can make those purchases as well. Our registration can happen on our website, and that's how we all register.
And when does that open for? I guess it would be January, believe it or not, January 2022.
Yeah, we'll probably open that up.
We went up, around September?
Yeah, we usually open it up around Labor Day.
Yeah,
all right, perfect.
I open up the registration on the website so people can start going to register, and that just gives us a count on how many people are coming and everything.
All right, very good. So to wrap this up, I've got one more question because I failed to ask you guys for a backpack setup for somebody out doing a long section hike or through hiking. What is the average weight of a setup, of a hammock setup? What could people be looking for? So Skunk, you did the whole AT with a hammock. So what people get all into their weight and they want a 1 pound tent and all that kind of stuff. So
how big is your wallet?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just one of those things. What's the motto that I say? Cheap, light, durable, pick two. But whenever I done my 2012 hike, the hammock I had was more of a bougie hammock, so it weighed a little more. The hammock itself was over 2 pounds.
I'm good with a bougie hammock.
Right. But they do weigh a little more. Like I said, the hammock itself was a little over 2 pounds, and then of course you got the tarp after that, and then your quilts and everything. So I was probably around 6 pounds or so just for my setup. Whenever I go to do my hike next year, I'm changing everything out and going to be a good bit lighter. I'm probably end up being with everything probably just over 3 pounds.
And I've seen some of this light setup, and it looks awesome. So I'm excited for it.
The one Brit's sitting in right now, that hammock is just under 5 ounces, for the hammock itself, and then you got probably 11 ounces for a tarp. You can go as heavy or as light as you really want. Like
AJ said, it's whatever your credit card desires.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Whatever you can hide from your wife.
There you All right, guys, really appreciate it. And I'll be right back with Skunkape for some more stuff he's got going on. Appreciate it, guys. All right, you guys, as promised, I am back with Skunkape, and AJ's still here, and who knows when he's going to chime in. We are having a really good time here, and I wanted to give Skunkape the mic so he could talk about his new school, Back to Basics. Did I get that name right?
Yes, Back to Basics Survival.
That's where the survival came in.
Yes.
I was asking you about the survival, and I got all twisted up and called it completely something it wasn't. So it's Back to Basics Survival.
Yes.
And you recently just opened your website, so you have a website for it. So right off the bat, what is it, and what made you decide to do something like a survival class school, so to speak?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a survival school where people can learn, backcountry survival and all the such is, depending on the classes, which we'll get into that in a minute. But I've always loved the outdoors anyhow, and I've always been big into the wilderness survival, and just always wanting to learn, how to do different stuff, fire by friction, the different shelters, debris shelters, and everything. So I just figured, I'd love to be able to spread the knowledge of it and everything.
And this is not your typical come and we're going to teach you how to backpack and bring all your glamping stuff that you like to use.
Yeah, no.
This is, you are going to use what's around you.
Right, with the advanced class. Now the
first
so
let's get into that too. You have two classes. I
have two classes. I have the Survival 101, and then which is the intermediate class, the more beginner class. And then I have an advanced class also, which the basic class, you can bring your hammock or your tent or whatever. whatever shelter you want. You still do, I still teach you how to make a survival shelter. And, if you want, we'll even go into the debris shelters, but you won't have to stay in those. Whereas the more advanced class, there's no tents, no hammocks, limited food. And I take you out and you learn how to build the debris shelters and the survival shelters, and that's what you're going to stay in that night. With the more advanced, you're also going to build make your own Yukon pack and tote stuff in with that versus a modern pack. I teach, how to, with the basic one, you're going to learn, fire starting, water procurement, some wilderness first aid, just the more basic stuff.
And things that people really need to know.
Right.
Before you, especially setting out solo and I don't even want to say that. It's like anything can happen when you're in the backcountry.
Exactly.
So you always need to know how to make a fire.
Right.
And as you and I are talking, I'm looking around like, okay, if I had to make a fire, even if I was injured, would I really know how to do that?
Right.
Would I know how to utilize what's around me? So you're going to teach people that.
Right. Well, I'd go over the ferrocerium rod, as a way of starting fire. But also, show a more primitive way using a bow drill, which is really fun, by the way.
Your definition of fun and my definition.
But no, let me tell you.
I'm with AJ. I was like, oh boy, that seems like a lot of sweat and hard work.
It is, but if you've ever watched Castaway, with Tom Hanks, remember whenever he finally made fire from just sticks? Yeah, the excitement that he has, that's the excitement you get. Because it is hard work, but it's just the fun of knowing, okay, I can do this if I have to, it's great to always have a lighter or something with you, but lighters run out of fuel, lighters get wet, spring breaks, there's always something that can go wrong. So it's always nice to know that you have another way of doing something that can potentially save your life.
So so you just kind of started this, you got the website up and going. Right. Can people sign up for classes now, or give us some information on how people register?
On the website, which the website is backtobasicssurvival.com, the 2 being the number 2. You can go on there, and I have, the different class, descriptions, and also a schedule on there that I will continuously update, as I get the locations to have the classes.
Now, are you looking for maybe a minimum number of people coming? Or?
Yeah, usually about 10 people. I do have private classes also, so if there is a group of people that, wants to, have just their group, we can set up, for that also. So that way you're not coming with, different strangers or, what have you. That might make some people a little more comfortable because they're with people that they know.
Well, like if a women's group wanted to come, you could hold a class just for that particular group.
Correct.
So they're more comfortable in getting to learn and what they're doing in the background.
Right. And then, also with the private classes, if say the group wants to, focus more on a particular thing, we can do that, as well. It'd be more tailored to what they want at that point.
Perfect. Now, are you also on Facebook and Instagram and all the socials?
I do have them. Pretty much just got them started as well. So I'm trying to add more content and everything as I go with them. But yes, Instagram and Facebook.
All right, perfect. So, all right, you guys, you got a couple websites you need to go on to. You got to go check out HangCon, and then you got to go over and see what Skunkape is doing at Back to Basic Survival. And I just want to personally thank you. It's great to meet you finally. I feel like we knew each other already.
Exactly.
And thank you for everything that you've done for the Hiking Radio Network and for my podcast with helping me with the artwork, which I have no idea what I'm doing with that. So thank you very much on that. It looks awesome. And we're going to get back to hanging out on some hammocks, and it looks like it could downpour at any moment. So thank you very much, Skunkape. Thank you very much, AJ. Appreciate it. And all right, you guys, I'll be back to chat and wrap this up. All right, you guys, real quick, I am back with AJ, and there is one particular thing that we forgot to talk about when it comes to hammocking is selecting your trees, and same thing with tenting. You don't want to choose widowmakers. Same with tenting. You don't want to set your tent up where a dead tree is. And I don't know anything about this with hammocking. So AJ, tell us what we need to look for.
Yeah, site selection is very important. When you pick your trees, you definitely, the first thing you want to do, you want to look up. Not down. You want to look up to make sure that you don't have any branches that if there were some wind to come by, the branches would come loose and they would quickly meet with either some part of your gear that you've paid a lot of money for that you don't want messed up, or in a worst case scenario, connect with your face. So you want to make sure
we don't want that to
happen. Yeah. Another thing you want to take stock of is the trees that you are hanging from. You want to make sure that the trees are at least 6 inches in diameter to make sure that they're going to have enough stout to hold you up in the air, and then you're not going to damage the trees. Also, you want to make sure that the tree that you're hanging from is a live tree. As another great way to get a gravity check is when you put weight on that tree disconnects from the ground. And you also want to make sure that when you're hanging on trees, you are using straps. Straps are some way to protect the tree, that you're not just tying it on rope. You also want to make sure that you're not walking or setting your hammock up on a game trail to make sure that you don't get a parade of animals coming through while you're sleeping at night. And again, a lot of this stuff is the same that you would do in a tent as well. And if you're expecting running water, you may want to look around to see if there's any evidence that water flows this way to make sure that you don't have a river running under you in inclement weather. But again, just smart site selection was going to make your camping experience so much better.
All right, AJ. Just wanted to come back and clarify that, and appreciate you coming back on.
No problem.
I had no idea this day of hanging out at the spring swing would be so much fun and filled with information. Thank you so much to Skunkape for inviting me and being so patient with all of my questions and fears about using a hammock, and for loaning me a 20-degree quilt to check out, because you all know I'm still using a sleeping bag. I'll keep you all posted on how things go with the quilt. And thanks to AJ for being willing to share all of his vast knowledge about the logistics of hammocking. And to the Palmetto State Hangers, you will definitely see me again. I also want to give a thank you and shout out to Jason Flowers with Walhallahammocks and Outdoors. Jason is one of the kindest individuals you will ever meet, and he hooked me up with a new hiking wallet and first aid zip pouch. I will definitely be in touch with Jason to chat hammocks real soon. Thanks for hanging around, everybody, and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can in the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.